Hello, marhaba. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast by Chalhoub Group. Today's topic is related to one of the recent studies that said 60% of professionals want to be entrepreneurs or be their own boss. Now, I'm not sure if they really knew what that takes to want to have that, but we have the experts who are working on that within Chalhoub Group, working with startups and helping them to grow their business. This team is the fantastic team from the Greenhouse who are innovating for a living. The Greenhouse is Chalhoub Group's innovation space where they work on business pain points and objectives for the group, but also for communities of startups in our region. I'm not going to say more. I am very happy to welcome Rafi Dikranian, Product and Marketing Director at the Greenhouse, and Joanne Marie Bassoul. Thank you for joining us. You're Finance and Operations Director at the Greenhouse. Yeah. I'm so excited to understand how you do your business. How do you help startups? And this is what we're talking about today. So hi.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's so when we tell everyone about the Greenhouse, we say, okay, we innovate. You can come work at Chalhoub Group, but we also have innovation. We really focus about innovation. Our values are entrepreneurial spirit, and we keep it at the heart. And the first thing we say is the Greenhouse. So, Rafi, maybe I want to start with you with a question. Tell us a bit on how the Greenhouse started at Chalhoub Group, why, and where you are today in your mission.
Cool. So we like to say that the Greenhouse is the space for entrepreneurship and innovation for the group. We launched the Greenhouse a long time ago, around 2017, 2018. And the reason there's two dates is because we had an unofficial launch and a hard launch, of course. Initially, we launched with the idea that the group needed to transform, and one way that we needed to do that is with the help of startups. So we launched with what we call a retail tech accelerator, which was a really, really cool program that brought startups from all around the world to help the group tackle some of the major pain points that we're facing at the time. In parallel, we launched a really cool program called Iptikar, which aimed at really looking at the talent of the group and seeing if we can find some really cool entrepreneurs, or as we like to call it, intrapreneurs, to come and launch their business with us, or we like to call startups, right? And we did that for quite a long time. We did that for about 4 years. We've hosted over 25 external startups. We've ran beauty and fashion incubators where we've brought local and international beauty brands. But in order to continue that value add from a perpetual perspective where we could keep growing, we actually had to transform ourselves. And in late 2021, we launched our Startup Studio, which is our newest and most exciting venture, where we're looking to build the next generation of fantastic founders and startups.
So this is super exciting. And I think the first thing that we think of is our core value is entrepreneurial spirit. It is today a company of 14,000 people. And it started by an entrepreneur and a man and a woman together, the Chalhoub family. They're entrepreneurs at heart. And every entrepreneur's dream is to have a big company that grows and has many people. And then you can be entrepreneurial. You have to work hard to stay entrepreneurial. So, Joanne, tell us a bit more about, how that happens. I mean, in a company like Chalhoub Group, how much do you focus on solving a business need, and how much do you contribute to really the startup ecosystem?
So we can solve a business need in multiple different ways, right? So we always look at innovation is at the core of everything we do. Entrepreneurial spirit, I think we'll touch base a little bit later when we talk about the Startup Studio. However, when we're talking about innovation, we can solve businesses and we can bring solutions in different ways. We either source it because this solution exists and it's a good solution, it has good track record, it's done wonders internationally, and then we need to bring it to the region. Or we create it because we can't find the right solution for it, right? So these are the two major pillars that we have at the Greenhouse today. Our Accelerator and Incubator programs bring existing solutions, whether they are brands or startups, to Chalhoub Group so they can work together and develop or bring in these solutions in-house. Or we actually co-create them in our Startup Studio where we're building startups from scratch with entrepreneurs from the region, whether they come from our Iptikar program or Entrepreneurship in Resident program to attract external founders. So what we're trying to do is actually bring value to Chalhoub Group, right? Perpetual value, like Rafi said, something that makes the group sustainable and keep growing and keep actually changing with consumer changes and consumer needs and wants changing over time. So what we're doing here is trying to bring that value to the group. And ultimately, we are building and being part of an ecosystem to be able to do that. So we cannot bring value to Chalhoub Group without actually nurturing an ecosystem and building a platform for the entrepreneurs of the region to actually keep growing, keep learning, keep developing exciting new things. If you don't have that platform, we won't get the solution and vice versa. So we need to be able to do both. I wouldn't say that it's a 50-50 or 100-100 because actually we're doing both at the same time.
Exclusive.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. I mean, there has to be a good ecosystem of startups to begin with to pick from them one or two that can solve a business case.
And funny enough, when we talk about the ecosystem of startup, we never believe that what we're building at the greenhouse is actually in competition with any other kind of ecosystem for startups. What we're doing is adding to the ecosystem, and we actually collaborate. We learn from each other. We want to share entrepreneurs as well together. We really want to be able to share our learnings because we're not in competition. We're actually all here to build what the ecosystem is all about and keep nurturing each other. So that's what we do.
So Rafi, can you give me an example of how that works? Like in a nutshell, when you start to create certain concepts or priorities, the greenhouse, just maybe to give context to our listeners. So the greenhouse is part of an innovation team, right? And there's also corporate innovation, but also the other teams in the same vertical you have intelligence and strategy and investment, right? And this is how you all work together. Give me a very, small example of how this works.
It's actually pretty cool. So when we want to launch, let's say, a new idea, we don't really launch ideas. We try to solve pain points in the market. So what we usually start with is a quick kind of overview to see what the strategy and intelligence teams are doing. They do a lot of primary and secondary research, and they always kind of have that foresight to see what's happening, next 3, 5, 10 years down the line. So we take that, we do a little bit of secondary research ourselves, a little bit of desk research to understand what's the startup ecosystem doing in that same industry. Then we bring subject matter experts from that industry and ask them what are their pain points in their current day-to-day. And we try to kind of, in the workshop setting that is in the greenhouse, which is a super cool place if people haven't seen it, and they're welcome to come. We're on a workshop where we try to map those pain points, but also map solutions to them. We take all of that and we kind of boil it down to 5 key, what we call part of our exploration portfolio, startup ideas that are broad enough to start a conversation with a potential entrepreneur residence or a potential employee of the group that wants to take a startup. We're looking for people that are passionate about the idea or have a skill set, people that perhaps are first-time, second-time founders, but people that really care about that, are passionate about it, and have a bit of that skill set in order to take the idea forward. And from then on, that's where the magic happens.
And I mean, what is the latest, brand that you launched in the startup studio? Joanne, can you give me an example and how did it work and how is it doing actually?
So with the growing, the growth of the group, actually, we're growing a number of employees, we're growing a number of brands that we're bringing to the region, number of stores. We're always utilizing a lot of material. We're always building new things. And one thing that we realized is the big opportunity for us to have a startup that actually can build this and build a strong process with it. So Hikaya is one of our startups actually where we create locally produced furniture, whether it's for stores or whether it's for offices, custom-made furniture that don't have any minimum orders, and you can order just one item. So when, for example, your team is growing from 10 to 11, you don't need to rechange all of your furniture and you don't need to go to China to actually purchase that one additional desk. You can go to Hikaya for actually to keep building that one unit. That's a big pain point that we've been having. There's been quite a lot of change and waste that could happen from these kind of things. And what we're trying to do is bring a sustainability element with local production, sustainable material to the group by actually owning that whole value chain of production. And that's Hikaya. Today, they've had a very good track record so far. They're still growing. They're still early stage, we would say, but having said that, they're able to win a lot of big projects as well and keep growing. We have a factory in Ajman. So everything is local. They have their own team. Everything is produced here. So not only the impact for the group, but their impact in the startup ecosystem is big, but as well their impact on the environment is big. So positive impact on the environment is happening at the same time.
Amazing. It's good to see when you have, sustainability at heart. And this is a great example of how it is at the core of the business. It's how the business is done. It's not on the side like, okay, we make money and then, we give back. We're actually doing it right from the first time. Our core business is fashion and beauty. And I think you've done a lot on, in this space. So can you tell us a bit more specifically success stories in fashion and beauty?
We run a fashion brand incubator and a beauty brand incubator. The focus is a little bit different. It's a little bit more aligned with trying to nurture the local brand ecosystem and the local fashion designers and beauty creators in our region. And this is where we try to focus on understanding who these people are, who has the large potential, and how we can help them with the expertise of the group. We're a company with tons and tons of experts that can really help these brands become commercially viable as quickly as possible. And this is where we add value through those two programs.
Yeah, and I was in the Retail Leaders Circle moderating a panel with some of the fashion brands and Saudi 100 brands from the Fashion Commission. And some of them were in the Fashion Lab, and they, still talk about everything they've learned and the marketing experience they got, and even the exposure that they got out of it. So in Saudi Arabia specifically, I felt that this is really needed, while the Fashion Commission is collaborating actually with us, and they want to focus on mentorship and connections and connecting with, people and companies like ours to actually give that expertise that they need to operate their business. Do you have any, what did you observe in terms of the regional startups, in terms of how disruptive they are, or what could be some key observations on where they need to focus or, get stronger in our region versus other international startups?
So I think first we need to differentiate between brands and startups. One thing that the incubator program is very much targeting brands for us, right? Like small brands and brands who are still growing and trying to develop themselves. And this is why the incubation program that we have focuses a lot on boot camps, really learning the basics, learning how you develop your brand, how you build it, packaging, understanding operations, setting up, a lot of support in content creation and how do you talk to your consumers. And this is where the expertise of the group is a lot needed and brings a lot of value actually to these brands, whether they are in the UAE or Saudi or in other GCC markets. I think we were able to give them so much more value by focusing on teaching them or supporting them in all of these different aspects of how to build brands, how to operate brands, how to scale them, and how to negotiate with suppliers, how to negotiate with your customers, etc., etc. This is really more on the incubation side. I think from an acceleration perspective, today a lot of the brands will need a lot of support from a tech perspective as well, and data. And these are two new verticals that we've become quite experts in the group, right? Is how to develop our tech and how to have the right tech roadmap and how really be able to structure your tech stack. And from the same side, from a data perspective, and I think these are two development that we can bring a lot to support early stage startups to how they can actually do all of that from the get-go. And that's something that our data team and our tech team support a lot the startups that we have at the Startup Studio today, where they work with them first from a consultancy perspective and they lay down the roadmap with them. They explain to them how it should work, and then they can actually be much more hands-on and give them the services direct to them. And the third pillar, I think, where startups in the region need a little bit more help is from an investment perspective.
That was my next question, actually. Yeah. So,
yes. Because if we're tackling the mentorship, the boot camp, the learnings, etc., we're tackling more technical support. I think the third one, where we have experienced entrepreneurs, we have startups that are really cool, they're up and coming, but I think where we need a little bit more is like investing in them and giving them that platform to give them these opportunities, which definitely the region has grown so much in the past few years. And we've seen this change quite a lot, to be honest. So maybe 5-10 years ago it was a little bit harder. Now it's getting to international standards, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the way we usually frame this is, the US or North America kind of started that whole startup, bang. Europe kind of took it and did it on its own way. And we are huge believers that the MENA region is kind of the next, like the third wave of startups. And we're seeing that. I think we're still in the early stages. There is money in the ecosystem. There are a lot of startups, but we're looking to grow that. And as I said, we always say, yes, we're building new ventures, but we're also trying to build the next wave of entrepreneurs, that people that are going to come in, they're going to build something substantial, something meaningful for a reason, something unique to us rather than just copycat, and come back and do it again and again and again, and kind of replicate the same success that North America and Europe has had over the past 20, 30 years.
And here you're saying entrepreneurs as in from our region, but also you mentioned entrepreneurs of Chalhoub Group. So I don't want to, end this podcast without talking about it, because when I joined the group, I found it a really cool concept that, you don't have to leave your job to go and take a risk and do a startup or try your own business or your idea. You're actually in a place that values that and tells you, okay, hey, we'll keep your job. If you have something really good enough, let's incubate it, let's see it. And tell me more about that.
Honestly, yeah, it's an incredible opportunity. In a way, we like to call it risk-free entrepreneurship. For employees of the group, honestly, you couldn't have a better testing ground to kind of test your entrepreneurial mettle, I guess. We have tremendous amount of talent. And really the idea behind it is we must have a couple of, Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos in that crowd, right? And we want to give them the opportunity to come and shine. And that's where the Startup Studio really brings a lot of value to those early stage entrepreneurs, where we actually have what we call a white glove service. We have people on our team that start day one with those entrepreneurs, hands-on, building product, building hypothesis, running sprints with them to really understand if they're tackling something worth investing in down the line. Honestly, it's something that very few corporates or companies do around the world, and we're very lucky to have management really invest in something so earth-shattering. Honestly, it's very rare to see that anywhere that we've actually looked into. So yeah.
And so if, let's say, I think the last one would be for our audience, right? If it's a brand or a startup or an employee, because they all hopefully watch the podcast. So what would you advise them and how to approach you in the greenhouse, one by one, let's say?
I would start with the employee part, which is super easy. You go on One Chalhoub, we have an Iptikar page. You get to know a little bit more about what Iptikar is all about.
Thank you for advertising internal platforms.
But for sure, I think we have enough information there to entice their curiosity, and they can just apply there directly. They can drop us a message, an email, whatever. We can meet informally first, try to understand a little bit more of what they want to do. And if it's something that we can take over at the Startup Studio, they can continue that journey. If not, and it's still something that they're innovating, we support them in really tackling this internally with their own team. When it comes to the brands, we do have campaigns. Whenever we do the Beauty Lab or the Fashion Lab, we actually do very big, strong campaigns for at least a period of a month or 2 months where they can apply. And honestly, we've had this success for the past 3 campaigns that we've done, more than 150 applications in each one of the programs that we've been running. So we do the same for the startup, for the retail tech as well, where we do a lot of campaigning and startup supply in retail tech for L'Occitane. How many applications did we get?
Over 200 easy, which is incredible.
So they can get a lot of these informations on our Instagram, on our website, in One Chalhoub as well, in internal news for our team. Internally, they can know a lot of what we're doing. And honestly, it's as easy as drop us a message, drop us an email.
You're our very approachable team. And I know that because a lot of people, like when I meet, they just tell me like, yeah, we've been to the greenhouse, we were passing by, we went in and the team gave me a tour. So not that we're inviting everyone to just jump into your office. But really, I think it's, great job you guys do. Really, thank you very much. Do you wish to add anything before we end?
Honestly, I think entrepreneurship is a very sexy subject, but it's also a very rewarding, let's say, career, because entrepreneurship can be a career as well. You have to be bold. You have to be very focused on your goal. But we do encourage everybody to take that leap of faith, at least one, especially if you're part of the group. Honestly, you don't have a better place for you to test your ambition and see if you can actually build something worth building.
It's a great advice.
Well, I'll add one more thing, is that usually entrepreneurship can be very lonely because it's a long road and there's a lot of things that an entrepreneur or founder needs to do on their own. Luckily, at the greenhouse, you don't do it alone. You actually do it with a team from day one at scale. You do it with us, with a big group behind you as well that supports you and is looking to see you grow and continue building a successful startup. So join us.
Thank you very much. My advice to everyone would be, it's not about age. You can be an entrepreneur at any age. So I still have a lot of time to do that as well. Just be bold, be courageous, and be curious to understand more. Thank you very much for joining us. Send us your feedback, questions, if any, and of course, connect with the Greenhouse. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much.